so in the next few years, you started working with a lot of like the bigger Cali spots, like not PWG yet, but AWS, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, APW.
Yep.
What were your goals around that time? And was your goal PWG? Was your goal, because that's one thing we didn't dive into. Were you the kind of person who's like, I really want to get to Japan. I really want to go to Mexico. I really want to work on TV. I want to get signed. I want to go to PW. Like, where was your head at? Or were you just like, I love what I'm doing. I want to work every weekend and keep getting better?
I mean, I had always thought like if those things I honestly never felt those things were for me,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And just some dude who started in a converted movie theater in Oklahoma City. Like, so I didn't have like I should have had more lofty goals or more direct. But like initially, it was I wanted to have a match. Then I kept wrestling, and then I moved. Then I moved out here, and then I didn't want to take the time off that I had to take off, but I wanted to find a place, and then I wanted to work as many places as possible in LA, and that's not work. Okay, well, then I'll try to work as many places in the state as possible. Cool. Now I'm starting to get on these bigger shows. Now I want to get. There was a point where I made it a goal of mine. I wanted to work at. There were like 3 or 4 of the big indie companies at the time, and I want it was in my head, at least in the moment, it was like SoCal Pro, EWF, AWS. Oh, New Wave at one point, but I already worked for them, and then I think it was a championship, and
Okay.
eventually I worked for like the I eventually worked for all of those, but at one point that had been a goal. It will always be a goal to go elsewhere, but a lot of the times achieving those, or in my case, a lot of the times I have no idea how to go about starting. So,
Plus,
which
every time you reach one goal, a new
terrible
one's going to
excuse.
pop up
Hey,
anyway.
that's how one would should hope that's how it works.
Yeah.
So now I got the one, I'm good. I
But
did the
plus,
one thing, I'm all set.
you talk about it, and I mean, not to jump ahead, but we probably won't be able to get to do it. Hopefully, maybe we can do a part two in the future because you've been great. But
Oh, I'd love to.
obviously, you went on to do Ring of Honor, and
Yes,
there
sir.
you are on television, on pay per view, traveling in the United States. Like, so you got there eventually. So even if it was like a pipe dream at the time in your head, you still did it, which is crazy in of itself. You know.
Baby, like the number, I say it when I actually sit down and think about it. Like the things I have actually been able to do, especially when I consider where and how I started. I probably shouldn't have been able to do most of it, and I probably didn't deserve to do like 3/4 of it. The point is, I like I said, starting where I did, never dreamed I would have worked for Gorilla, never dreamed I would have worked for New Japan. They paid me to work the wrestling show.
Yeah.
Like I train at a wrestling school that operates that operates from their dojo with their name on it. That's wild. And being in Ring of Honor, like I'd worked all that time and all those small victories, so those big things that felt really good along the way, and then it all said, and that's where I felt it paid off. My mom called me at one point because they were is they weren't not supportive, but they were never giant fans.
Mm-hmm.
Like even once I started, that nothing about that changed. It just pro wrestling wasn't for them. They would like for me to do well. They would also like me to get a real job, which I get it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming if I was my parent, I would have told me the same thing. But like I finally got the job, and my mom, like I called my mom after it, and we talked, and she said this, which it's like you did the, it's like you did it. You finally did it. You did it in
That's
spite of us, and it wasn't out of spite,
no, but
but
despite what
like
they were thinking.
yes, and I know that's not how like, and that doesn't that might sound bad, but it was, trust me, it was from a very it was from an important and a real place. Like
Yeah.
it was, can look at it now. Didn't once again hindsight everything. I realized I was her saying like you didn't stop, like you kept doing the
You
thing
did it.
that you always wanted to do, and then finally it paid off. And it doesn't always. Just because the dream comes true doesn't mean that it stays.
And doesn't mean it ends.
True.
And
Very
what's
true.
so interesting about your career, though, is so much of that happened in like the last 5 years after, 15
18
years,
years of
18 years of.
oh baby, it was probably a good, honestly, 15 to 16 years of just feels like spinning your wheels.
And then everything started blowing up. And of course, we'll get to that. A lot
Yeah.
of that again, if we do a part two, which hopefully we can, that'll
Oh, I would.
probably a lot of it be in part two.
Yes, sir. As I said, I'd absolutely love to. So if we
Thank
can
you
make
so
it
much.
work, absolutely.